What up, y'all? We're back. It's May 24th. It's an early morning in California. I'm here with the founders of TreeTrunk. It's the TreeTrunk Show. What's going on, y'all? We're back. It's May 24th.
Thanks, Will.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Super happy to be here. We have some exciting updates for you and things to share. So it's going to be a good show. How are you doing this morning, Will?
I'm excited. I got the update that I was going to be interviewing you today, and that is something I've been looking forward to very much. Do you want to start with updates, or how do you want to take it today?
Let's do the updates at the end. Yeah,
I love that.
And I think we're also going to be bringing on Ira and Richard Taub, goes by Rich, and yeah, it's going to be a good show.
I love that. Well, let's get into it. For the folks that are listening, they expected a show, so we're gonna give it to them. We're talking about John and I's mutual love of showmanship. Before we got onto the show, I'm trying to convince him to create some experiences for you all as TreeTrunk continues to grow. But Serena, I'm super excited about this. So my first question, usually on Living with Will, when interviewing artists and entrepreneurs like yourself, like, where did this journey begin? If you can, take us to the beginning of Serena's path to greatness, the ascent. Where does that climb begin?
Oh, wow. Like, where does the path begin? I'm not even sure that I have, out of the womb.
There you go.
Yeah, I've always loved art, grew up in art. So that was kind of a really big passion for me. Funny enough, I also really loved medicine. And so I almost went into medicine, but in college I was studying mechanical engineering. And while doing that, I took a little bit of time off just to see if I liked business or medicine. And I ended up choosing business and loved it. So, I've always had some type of business capacity and art capacity, and business has just kind of always been in my family. So I've just been very blessed to have that. But I think business really excites me. As well as art. And, it's funny, I was actually just in Irish Tech News podcast. And one of the questions that I got asked was, I think it was like advice to people who are looking to figure out how to basically set forth their creativeness. And something that I noticed very, very late in the game was that I never thought that I was creative. And I always thought I had no artistic ability. My two claims to fame were drawing palm trees and stick figures. So that was definitely interesting every single time, without fail. And I later realized that the creativity for me comes through in business and art, but really business itself. And so I think that is something that's always been with me. I just never knew that it was there. And yeah, I would say out of the womb then. Back to your question.
I absolutely love that. I also love the idea of business through art or art through business. Like it's something that Web3 has really kind of honed in on me. It's just really become clear that there is a creativity in an art form to create a business. And I think, John, it's interesting. When the three of us met, I think we had this conversation a bit with Logic, because here we all were working in this creator economy, all with different business backgrounds, but all very creative people. And one of the things I loved about what you said, Serena, is that you were interested in medicine as well as business and art. And what I found this out recently, I just thought I'd share it. I think you find it interesting too. Egyptian mythology believed that the gods gave us culture and medicine. And so I love that, you've kind of been, playing with these ideas. I don't know. I found that out recently. What was if you can recall, what was the final decision when you were making that decision between medicine and business? what was the final, you were like, you know what, business is it, sorry doctors.
Yeah, I think for me, it was just like the excitement was unparalleled. I think when I do things in business, I get so excited about it that I just throw myself at it. And it's really hard to not do that. Uh, and more recently, I've been doing it with TreeTrunk, and having a great time doing that. We've also been meeting a lot of great artists, a lot of great people, like both of you, and it's just been a great time. But I think back to what you were saying with the Web3 space, I really feel like this is such a great space for me specifically because it matches all of my expertise into one place. And while I've had other roles and done a lot of things, but I've really noticed that this is where it's kind of the compilation of everything, and this is the intersection of kind of business, art, and technology, which I've always strived to bring together. But this is the only space that has really just made that possible, and allowed me to run with it. So
No question. Yeah, that's you're giving me the easiest transition of all time as as an interview host. I love it. So you go down this path of business, and Web3 and crypto and blockchain are kind of this developing technology along with your career. When did you make the shift into blockchain and crypto, and how did you co-found TreeTrunk? Like, how did you and John come together and were like, let's make this happen?
So, funny enough, I went to my first Bitcoin conference in 2011. Actually, it was the first global Bitcoin conference. That
I was
was
gonna
the
say
first one.
2011. Yeah, that makes
Yep,
sense. Oh my God.
it was the first one, and I walked around the entire conference, and I could not convince anybody to give me a Bitcoin, because I was under 18. And so I was really distraught. Um, and I'm a great negotiator. I tried very hard, but because I was under 18, I could not get anyone to give it to me. And I was so mad about it that I then did not buy a Bitcoin for quite some time. But at the time, it was like $30. It was just absurd. The most inexpensive that I've ever seen it.
Well, give it a few weeks. It'll be back there.
I don't want to say.
Hey, Richard.
So,
Hey guys.
Hey, Richard, yeah, a lot of background wind there, but you're a man on the street right now, right? You're at the what event?
It's the Mutual Management Association, and there we go. I'll show you. That's downtown Tampa.
Oh, right.
You see that?
wow.
So that's Convention Center right there.
Restream is. Oh, that's crazy. Restream is not the best format for mobile, I've noticed, unless it's gotten better.
Oh, really?
So you're probably going to want to just mute and keep camera off.
Sure.
But we'd love to hear. We were just talking to Serena about some stuff, but we'd love to hear about the event that you're at representing TreeTrunk. I think that'd be huge. But I think but just hit your
when you're ready.
Because it's probably there. He goes. I can hear. I can hear again. Yeah. So sorry, Serena. I just want to bring Richard up on the stage. Right on.
Everyone is welcome.
Yeah. So we were talking about Bitcoin, and yeah, man. Hey, I'd buy Bitcoin at 30.
Yes, I would as well. Yeah.
Actually, I'm rigging up my quantum. Yeah, this is a true joke. I remember early on at IBM when I went over from Watson to blockchain, and and I often tell the story. My favorite boss of all time, Jerry Cuomo, called and says, "Hey, the CEO there's this blockchain thing. Let's go check it out." And I said, "Well, give me a shipping crew and I'll go check it out." And he said, "Well, I got a canoe, 2 muskets, and a dog." And I said, "Okay, we got lucky." But I tell that story all the time. I think it's true. I think I've said it so many times that it's like my memory is just kind of reinforced by it. But if it actually happened or not anymore, I don't know. But I think it did. Anyway, memory is not a thing. but yeah, the interesting thing was the joke that we had was, well, the business model for IBM and blockchain should be, let's just turn our quantum computer on and mine all the Bitcoin in like 5 minutes, which, by the way, you can't do. But it was a funny joke. In fact, I was just talking with somebody about what is the future of, the thing that blockchain is about. As opposed to, wasn't a great session last night with, I put the link to it in the chat, but if you can't see that link, if you're on one of the channels and you can't see the link, just go to my Twitter feed, Jay Wolpert, and on Twitter, and you'll find that link to last night's Twitter Spaces show, where we had William Entricken and Dr. Andreas Freund, the writers of the ERC 721 and the EIP 4910 draft, both in the same room. It was fantastic. Will, you did a great job moderating that. And I liked what Will said, which was that it's not about, ERC 721 or 4910, about any kind of implementation. It's about the ideas behind it. And I find that to be very true. And so the idea behind consensus and having a state machine that can kind of keep all the other state machines from playing too much shenanigans, and basically having what we call a this before that machine, which is an important thing in computer science. You can't actually have a timer. What you can have is because causality is weird, and quantum physics is weird, right? Go too far away, and you don't know what time is. Einstein showed, right? The time is relative depending on what context you're sitting in. But this before that, causality is not. So that was and that's something that Leslie Lamport, one of the founders of distributed systems, really picked up and made. Most of the things that we live on today would not exist without Leslie Lamport's insights into things like the original consensus algorithm called Paxos, or the consensus model, Paxos. Hey, Richard, you want to jump in?
Oh, sorry about that. No, I hit that inadvertently. Go on.
No worries. And so I think that it's an interesting thing to say, well, what we need in the world is a this before that machine that is definitive. Right? Any machine that needs to know that this thing happened before that thing, before it does its thing, needs a thing that does that. And the internet doesn't provide that out of the box. The internet is stateless, which means that it can scale. That's, routers are running around going, hey, pack it in, pack it out, pack it in, pack it out, pack it in. It doesn't have to figure out whether other routers are in consistency. That's why the internet does not blow up. Blockchain attacks that fundamental problem. It also is not scalable because physics. But if you get to quantum computing, and I can imagine a bunch of countries getting together and say, okay, look, let's take all of our quantum computers and generate that final consensus state. Only do it quantum. And maybe that's the ultimate blockchain, as it were, or the ultimate, thing that drives a global high performance this before that machine.
Just like last night, I have so many more questions that I came in with. I hope we can get William and Dr. Andreas back together, because that was
crazy.
I've been so over my head, and so
I've never talked to him. He was great. I've never spoken to him. And I'm like, man, you're like a brother I never knew,
I love that.
He spoke from my point of view very strongly.
John, before we get back to the line of questioning, I told someone on the phone that I was like, man, hearing you react to him, being like, yo, you're speaking for me, man. That made my whole day. That's how I knew it was a great interview, because when you hear elements of yourself in someone else, which I would say happened when I met John and Serena. Not a shill, just the truth. Awesome people. It's an amazing
Likewise.
feeling. And, you know, it's like, it's what leads people to do great innovation. I believe is when they, you know, someone they respect is saying and doing things that they say and do as well. But Serena, I'm going to bring it back to you. You were telling us about, you know, Bitcoin snubbed you. They didn't let you in, so you did not participate. And
Yes.
did you want to continue down this, or did we want to bring Rich in to talk about the conference while we still have him?
Maybe let's talk about the conference real quick.
Cool.
Let's see what's happening over there, and then we could get back into it too.
I love it. I love this. Is perfect for my ADD mind. We're all over today. I love it.
Well, and truth be told, the reason why is Richard's finding his unmute button. The reason why it's kind of all over the place is that this is the last. Unfortunately, this time frame precedes our code lock on the final work by 2 days. So I don't have anything to show until 2 days from now. So we'll have to wait until next Tuesday.
But it is an exciting show then. This is the calm before the storm.
Yeah.
Very true. Well,
So
Rich,
Richard,
it looks
what's
like
up?
you found the unmute button. How's the conference going? Where are you?
I'm in downtown Tampa, and the conference is great. It's an organization of financial executives in big media companies. So I've been a member here for 20 years. I was a past board member, past chairman. And what I love about it, besides just great people, and they do make it fun, as nerdy as it sounds, when new trends make it to the finance departments, and they always must, any kind of major corporate expenditure or any major investment of time or effort, even in any big company, will usually start in a biz dev role, sometimes in tech. But once it gets to the finance folks, which it has to in order for anything to be approved and for major expenditure to be dispersed, that's when a company has bought into something. That's the exact time. So that to me is always the inflection points of this conference. Is kind of like an early marker that if you're a recon unit in a war, when you see the enemy or when you see the time to act, that's what my analogy is. I come here and I see 4 panels that are not ostensibly about NFTs, but the conversation drifts into them because people are asking questions. I did a presentation of the problems and solutions in NFTs for big media, for digital collectibles, and very well attended. Great questions, skeptics, enthusiasts, everything. So it's been really useful to see who's really eager to move, who still has some basic questions, but to see just the general level of enthusiasm and need for these folks to get educated so they can help their companies move forward.
Would you say that the NFT landscape in NFTs? Oh, sorry, I meant the enterprise landscape in NFTs. Would you say that that's very early stages still, then?
Yeah, they're not in the beginner stage. I think where we've gotten in the past year is that every major company, like NBC Universal, Warner Brothers Discovery, they have NFT experts now. Whereas a year ago, it was just people talking by a water cooler. And the experts then lead to business plans.
Do they have NFT experts, or do they have people who say that they're NFT experts?
That I haven't discerned the difference between. If they're only saying they are, at least they can put up a good show. But they're expert enough to know that they have manna from heaven. They have phenomenal content, and they can monetize that content with very little associated cost. So it is the classic return on assets strategy The problem they have, and they will say this, you know, as readily to me as to anyone, is that there's too much risk currently. There's not enough reward currently. And as the current NFT industry is structured, it is anathema to their general corporate strategy of being direct to consumer, D2C. And that's what they need changed. And that's what companies like TreeTrunk can do.
I buy the D2C part. That is that they don't want to have to sell Batman cowls through OpenSea, right? They want to do that through their own properties on the web.
Mm-hmm.
The truly decentralized thing, the web, right? You know,
Yes.
somebody was like, I'm really into Web3. I'm like, you know what? What if we started a whole new thing called the web? Anyway, sorry. That's me. Sorry, there's this guy named Mark Andreessen. He's like this young dude coming out of UIUC. He's got this idea for browsers. It's cool. Anyway, sorry. In my day, we called them browsers. But let's push back. I want to push back a little bit on, you know, and I'm teeing you up for this, obviously. Okay, so yeah, they want to sell through their own thing. And that makes sense. That's why we did what we did with TreeTrunk, and you can put an NFT into embed it into any website and buy, sell, list, even collect your royalties directly from there without even leaving the website. Right? I love that. It's my favorite thing. Yeah. Funny, it was the last thing we did, and it was also weirdly technologically the easiest thing we did once we figured out the smart contract. But what I wonder more about is when they talk about the gold mine and that there's too much risk, and there's not enough reward. And $69 million for people, that sounds like pretty good reward. And these guys are major, you know, the Warners of the world. You know, they've got major properties. Why isn't there enough reward for them? But also, where is that actual risk? Let's get deeper into that.
Sure. Well, the reward issue is when you look at the sales of, you know, as they're currently structured, this linear model. Think about this: you sell an NFT once, and then the buyer buys it. Who knows if and when the buyer will eventually sell that NFT? And
but they're good. They're good, Richard. With you know, I'm going to sell a subscription once, or I'm going to sell, but you're not going to pay every time you listen to a Spotify tune, right? You're just on subscription. So why is that a problem?
Oh, subscription is different. So this is akin to like a Warner Brothers merchandising division right now. It's a lot of money, tons. But for them, licensing and merchandising is not their core business. The subscription is. So the subscription is something entirely different. That is the essence, the base of the modern media company. What they look for, though, and this is their business model, is once they have a subscription and they have franchise titles and pieces of content, the next question is, well, how do you elongate the tail of revenue from that one particular piece of content or icon? And to date, that has been, well, you know, you have a phenomenal movie like Scarface, and it comes out in the theater, boom, you make a lot of money, and then now it's on streaming. That's the emerging model.
Everybody wants their Scarface, doll. You know, cause, I remember adoring my Scarface action figures, man. Those were, I would play around and I'd say, say hello to my little friend. You know, it was like,
right. But everything after the initial exhibition should be return on asset. You have an asset and you're just looking to maximize the return on that one particular asset. And what happens is these assets, as popular as they are, they become dormant. So something as valuable, something as recognizable, this unbelievable icon of Al Pacino and Scarface, it does go dormant. But the value, and they have not been able to unlock, well, how do we renew the franchise? How do we extract more revenue from this dormant asset?
Okay,
And
but where's that's different, right? So the reason why Beeple got $69 million was because zeitgeist, luck, and Beeple, right? And clearly, my Scarface action figure does not go for $69 million. But that's not, NFTs don't solve that. That's just, who wants the content, who wants the item, right? The asset being a thing people are willing to part with treasure to obtain. That's the only definition of an asset, right? So, so given that, if there were no ants left on the world, my one ant would be a very powerful asset, right? So, but that doesn't speak to risk. That just speaks to the fact that these guys want to make more money off of their existing IP, their existing properties.
Sure. So
right?
that's
what drives Marvel. That's
right.
what drives
This is
Disney.
reward.
Yeah.
Right. This is the reward set. There's three. I said there's three challenges they have. There's too much risk. There's not enough reward. And so when you talk about a reward, what they're really looking for is, well, what are the ways that we can, of all the opportunities they have, how are they going to maximize reward at the least amount of effort, least amount of cost? And what the Batman program did was sell $60 million of NFTs, and that was a huge success. Now, Batman is a very unique property.
Is that what happened with Palm? Did Palm sell $69 million worth of cowls?
60. So
I
they
did
sold
not hear
out.
that.
Yeah, they sold out. I don't know if they
Good for
announced
Dan.
it because the Warner guys here. Yeah, the Warner guys here said, what was the actual take, and they wouldn't tell me, but they said that they sold out, all of them. So
I'm gonna ping our good friend Dan Hammond. Good for him.
Yeah, and they did the Matrix promo before that, which also did well. But their concern now is that you can only manufacture. These are contrived NFTs. The real value, and they're experimenting. These are the rapid baby steps that Warner Brothers Discovery is taking. The real value is when they're going to do, mine the catalog for the real gold nuggets, like a Scarface, and make it very rare, and the price would be rather high. But that's the reward calculation. The reward calculation now is, Batman Cowls aside, is they're looking at this saying, well, we put this on OpenSea. Okay, forget about the risks of OpenSea for a second.
Well, Batman Cowls were on Palm, but yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's the reward side of the equation. The risk is this. There's three major buckets of risk. One is legal, of course, and Ira has talked about that many times, but that is enough to freeze the conversation. So that makes them move much more slowly. The second one is technology risk, the fear of security breaches and things like that. That is enough for a big company to move slowly and have pause. And the third one is business risk. And the business risk is what this group focuses on a lot, which is what we're talking about here, which is things like that. If you put something on OpenSea, you have, the Scarface NFT or something from Disney, and it's going to be next to bunnies and homies on OpenSea. That's not acceptable for a large company with an incredibly valuable icon.
Any of these IP companies want to sell from their own properties, right? Whatever their the Batman website, their Warner or whatever website. They don't want to have to send you to some other platform, and that is one of the cool things that we figured out how to do with TreeTrunk. That's great. But with Palm, for example, they have Palm Studios. They don't do that, right? They don't make you go to a Palm marketplace. They will custom build you for a lot of money a site that is connected to a wallet and runs. But behind that is a private permissioned or public permissioned, I suppose, database, called Quorum, running, which is great. But do we believe that that's really gonna? Look, I'm in the business, and I don't know that $69 million is what people are going to be paying for Batman calls going forward. I mean, it seems to me that this is my challenge to you, Richard, is media companies chase fads. That's what they do. If this was the time of Beanie Babies, they'd be chasing Beanie Babies. They would want Batman calls on Beanie Babies. They want the Batman Beanie Baby. Why is this different substantively?
I also just wanted to take a moment to say, wow, this is a full house right now. This is awesome. Hi, Ira. Happy to have you in here as well. Welcome. I think you're muted.
I love the silence that's happening right now.
I was just about to say, John, I think you're muted too.
Oh,
I am.
All right.
Yeah, we lost them both.
And then there were three.
We lost them both. Oh well. See, I dropped these bombs. Like, and then I was like, why is this not Beanie Babies? Everybody leaves the room. Because it is. No, I mean, look, I think that's the. Oh, there they are. That's the real question. I mean, technology aside.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Hey, Richard.
My headphones died.
No problem.
You asked about, is this a fad?
No. I just wrote in an op-ed that NFTs aren't a fad, but any particular collection might be a fad. NFTs as a technology, it would be saying like email's a fad. I mean, or a scam, and that's not, email can be used by scammers and it can be used by fadsters, but it's not a fad. NFT technology is kind of boring, actually. It's just the hype that we've brought up around it. Having basically digital sales agreements or digital receipts of rights is not a fad. The question is
snapping, John. I was over here snapping, dude. I tweeted it in the private chat. Please continue. I really appreciated that.
Yeah, that's not a fad, but a Warner saying, "Hey, we got to have 69 million Batman cowls out there because everybody wants that." Well, clearly that's a thing right now they can tap into, or at least it was as of a few weeks ago. I'm not, that's the question. Really, the question I have for the day is, what's it going to be like at NFT NYC? Are people going to be buying NFTs? Is the Coinbase marketplace going to be in good shape? Are people going to be buying anything really at all, quality or otherwise? Are we going to throw out the baby with the bathwater? And then the question is, are things like TreeTrunk going to be a revival story where we're saying, yeah, you're right, coin went down because coin go down, but this isn't about coin go up or down. This is about putting food on the table for artists and collectors on the way to fame and fortune, right?
Well, I think, hey, I'm of course bought into this. I drink the Kool-Aid as much as anyone in this industry, but the reason I do is because I don't like to get involved in faddish things. I don't have that appetite for risk, and I value my time more than that. What I see here is there's long-lasting intrinsic value being created in big media and for artists as well. I'm focused today because I'm in the conference and on this sector and enterprise, but everyone here certainly agrees too that the Batman thing with Palm and the Matrix NFTs that they distributed, those are baby steps. Those are first steps. Where they eventually want to go is to issue that big, fat, famous, say hello to my little friend NFT. is for the U.S. Olympic Committee to issue that final moment of the 1980 USA-Russia hockey game NFT with the digital signatures of all 20 players, or the remaining living players and coaches from the U.S. team, distribute that in a way that maximizes their revenue and maximizes the community engagement in Olympic hockey. And that's where TreeTrunk comes in, because one of those buyers will be Wayne Gretzky or Elon Musk or whomever, and they will mint their second generation. And that will be, people who still have a lot of money, but really want to be associated with Wayne Gretzky tree, branch of the tree. And because he's Wayne Gretzky, he will be able to probably, alter and improve the NFT down the line somehow. I imagine a Wayne Gretzky can add to an NFT and issue a new one, now adding the living Soviet players and coaches.
I think I would pay some money to be in a chat room on a regular basis with Wayne Gretzky. I'd pay some money to be in a regular D&D, Dungeons and Dragons event, like campaign with Wayne Gretzky, right, or whatever.
Wouldn't that be
point
cool?
is that,
Yeah.
well, yeah,
and but
I can sell tickets to that without any NFTs right now. In fact, I was at my kid's school and bought there's a great D&D guy around here, and I bought a night of playing D&D with that guy. I did not buy that with an NFT. I did not require it. So that I'm with you to a certain point, and I'm being deliberately, rough to really drive out.
That's all right. Right? John, I'll tell you where I disagree. I'll tell you where you're flat wrong.
That would be good. I like that.
I know you do. Dissent is encouraged in the TreeTrunk family in such a great way.
Mm-hmm.
The reason is because, if you get Wayne Gretzky in a chat room, he's doing that somewhat reluctantly. He's a happy guy. He's got his life. He's got his kids. His daughter just got married. He's got stuff to do. He makes appearances all over the world doing God knows what. Being paid and obliged as a fundraiser for, to raise money at a local hospital to be in a chat room with a whole bunch of people. He'll do that. He's probably a great guy. But this is different. This is a passion project. This is him creating something. You take someone who's as wealthy and powerful and he's got so much passion, like a Wayne Gretzky, he wants to create. And when you give the power for him to create in his hands and partially own that content, that NFT, to be a steward of it, that's a word I think you first used in December or November to me and always rang a bell. Now he's an eager and willing participant. And that's what people believe is the value in big media. That's what people believe is the value of those influencers who they don't use the word influencer. They use first generation buyers.
And
I
love that.
And this is, you get a Wayne Gretzky buying that when that NFT is issued. And by the way, Al Michaels, the famous commentator from that last moment, all the kids are, do you believe in miracles? The countdown, the kids throwing their sticks and gloves in the air. Al Michaels is almost 80, I believe. He's not going to be around that much. And this is the great intersection of this with art, is that suddenly this collectible is, people realize that this guy is not going to be around forever. And you have speculation coming into the equation as well, in anticipation of, Al Michaels is not going to be around forever. So that's what big media sees, is every company has so much content that means so much to so many people. So you have in a classic kind of an economics graph, if you go back to your macroeconomics or microeconomics class in college, the amount of utility that can be derived today by a massive fan of that game is capped. And now we're allowing the owners of the content to really, to offer more utility, more value to people to get that untapped revenue. And the revenue, I'm not so interested, to be honest with you. And, I love the Scarface example because Universal Studios uses it. what I'm more interested in, and those are going to be great, but I think what's really cool is the long tail of content. The meaningful moments that people, want to buy into, but are not huge Scarface moments.
Totally. Like Top Shots, I think it followed that line of thinking to a T. And I'm curious, Ira, like we're talking about it from an enterprise perspective, but like, what are your thoughts, coming from a legal expertise perspective? And for those who don't know Ira, the NFT legal consultant, Ira, being in rooms with you, Ira, was one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of, because I don't think we get a lot of access to legal knowledge in this space very often. So I'm super grateful you're here.
Well, can you hear me okay, first of all?
Yes.
I want to make sure.
There's a little
I have
chop, but we're
Alexa.
okay.
Yeah, I'm using my favorite coffee shop's Wi-Fi. So I'm disturbed by that. I have to talk to the owner. Well, all right, first and foremost, I kind of like consider myself a computer scientist first and a lawyer second when it comes to these things. I get more excited by the innovation and the computer science behind all this, the social impact of all of it. The law is kind of like a Swiss Army knife where you could use it to do things and have some sort of social good and social ordering. But that's going to continue to evolve. So the answer would be, let's look at baseball cards and football cards and collectibles. I mean, Gary Vee went from wine to baseball cards. I started following him when he was collecting baseball cards. And that's what's going on in the NFT space. Those baseball cards, under the law, are covered by what's known as the first sale doctrine. So each time you buy a package of baseball cards, you don't need permission of the copyright owner to resell them. That makes them collectible. That is created a great market. It created a great economy, and the cards would go out of value, many times asymptotic. And that first sale doctrine provided for that. Same thing with art and paints and things of that nature. So before NFTs, or I should say before the recent resurgence of NFTs around 2020, 2021, it was very rare that folks would go ahead and issue art and provide licenses. And there's many cases where clip art companies would just see people out of existence just using clip art. And we would get, if you got a license, would be limited use license for like one CPU or one website. If you go to Gig Images right now, you can still see kind of like what the older licensing paradigm was. It wasn't made for collectibles. Well, NFTs came along. Now what essentially, you can't have a for sale doctrine for digital goods. Okay, that would be copyright infringement. Only physical goods. Baseball cards, yes. The pictures on baseball cards, digital form, no. Well, now that no has turned into a yes. And now we have a whole economy with the euphoria, the adrenaline, the economics of the baseball card collecting fine art, and that is what NFTs really are. They have now bottled that whole economy, and they made it global, worldwide, trust, and fast. And so if you're looking at the law and NFTs, that is the exact place to start, that economy. And so, I hear these things and I say to myself, all right, let's take the thing that Richard has been saying, and these are, and as Richard knows this, common in content industry for decades. What do people like? There were times when people would make cards of Hollywood movies. There's whole licensing is a very robust area of law in Hollywood and the content industry. And so now we're saying, okay, which of these things can now become collectibles? That's a little bit new because of the enormous scope of it. And just to push back a little bit, I'm not sure what's going to be a collectible. I'm not sure if I go out and I have a Whitey Ford baseball card that's worth a certain value, whether or not you can make what collectibles that have a content on them would give you that collectibleness. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't make it. It just means that we have to set expectations. Is something collectible? Is something, for a while, one of my companies well, we did the streaming for Hulu and Netflix or whatever. And, one of the things we were doing were play commercials. So can something that looks like collectible just be kind of a play commercial for a movie, a giveaway or something that may not have lasting, enormous value, but something that you might get if you go on the line and get your kid a meal at McDonald's, the drive-through. They have these cooperative marketing things for movies, because if you get the collectible, the kid wants to go to the movie, tells the parent. So all these decisions are going on. It's a whole mosaic, a whole continuum from something that would be an advertisement or a play commercial, something that would be something like a collectible, to all the way out there where people are doing things that are completely designed, as we heard with Batman, for purposes of membership and collectibles. So that's my diatribe.
I love that. Are there any cases that are happening right now that relate to NFTs that you're kind of paying attention to that you think maybe other people might want to as well?
We started getting a smattering of cases in, and initially, last year, especially during the Clubhouse era, I'll call it, I was kind of surprised that there weren't a whole lot more cases. And so I expect that there's going to be an acceleration at some point. It may be starting even now, because for about an 18-month period, particularly during the pandemic, lawyers didn't want to file cases because they want to go to court and have to wear masks. And I did a trial in the Southern District of New York, and we had to wear masks behind polyurethane glass. And one of our jurors got COVID. So that was during a federal trial in the Southern District of New York. And that was actually at the very last stage before you can get a COVID vaccine. Literally, the vaccine was available right after the trial. And so you had to risk death to go in those days. But I think we're going to start seeing a lot more. You have NFTs are monetization plus peer-to-peer content networking, and just peer-to-peer content networking brought out copyright infringement lawsuits. Tie it to monetization, you can imagine what's going to happen. So folks have to be very cautious. They can't say everyone else is doing it. They can't go I could hide behind some sort of pseudo-anonymity. I think it's going to accelerate. It's just a matter of time and the form, probably somewhere in the United States. Securities cases, Dapper obviously has been sued in, I believe, New York. And, a lot of lawyers have to become more educated in this space as well. So I don't know who the lawyers are in the case, but they brought the lawsuit in New York's court, I believe. And the choice of form and the choice of law in Dapper's agreements is basically one of my favorite cities on Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And so I don't know the exact status. I did look at some competing motions to dismiss. I think the case was in federal court where it should be, because it's federal jurisdiction for those sorts of cases. And I saw some in New York has a peculiar practice where you write letters before bringing, and they have competing arguments on whether or not it's an unlicensed entity. And Dapper is relatively conservative. So back with an adverse ruling, you could have, a major ripple effect throughout the industry, because it's Top Shots. And that's a closed ecosystem. People can buy and sell, and they hope the price, sometimes it goes down. So one person's baseball cards maybe is another person's, unlicensed security. Where that line's drawn is unclear. We'll find out. So you have securities, you have copyright, you're going to have cases of trademark. There's the whole this fraud. There was a indictment brought against a rug pull. So if you have an NFT piece of art plus a roadmap, and then you lie out your roadmap, and then you lie in a way where it's not the least bit defensible, like you take down the website after getting all the crypto in, that recipe for a fraud indictment. And wire fraud means fraud over the internet or over the phone. So the wire fraud indictment brought by the by the Department of Justice. So, if I had to make it real simple, one of the easiest ways to avoid a fraud or wire fraud indictment is, number one, to be honest. So even if you can mistake on the security side, at least honest, and you'll probably have a very good outcome even on the security side, because security is all about giving people disclosures, right? And preventing market manipulation. But if you also really want to avoid fraud, don't do a roadmap. Don't do a roadmap. A roadmap is a really nice way of basically saying,
Oh, we lost you.
Ira, I think you're
You
muted.
lost your
How
audio.
could that possibly happen? Right as you say that.
It's the headphones actually.
Yeah, it's my headphones.
Ira's back.
Okay, so, no, it's just ridiculous. So, the roadmap is just a nice name. There's a lot of nice names get to things that could be nefarious. A roadmap, one person's roadmap, the other person's fraud generating tool. It's like promise riches, promise future coin of ridiculous value. Get in quick and get in early. And by the way, you will enrich all those who are behind the roadmap, and you may become, maybe not, rich too. And so
You don't typically see securities log coming into play when a company says to a bunch of investors, "Hey, these are the plans for our." They want to see a roadmap, right? They want to say, "Well, we're going to build this feature, then this feature, and this feature," and then some of those features almost inevitably don't get built. And what you see is you do see lawsuits, but they're between investors and operators for leading us down the garden path.
But there's a difference. And the way I look at it from my lawyer lens would be, is this a company? And I've been part of some of these companies, by the way, in the video game industry especially, where we promise all sorts of things. And some of it becomes vaporware because of one reason or another. But no one's putting up, no one's buying for, 0.5 ETH a token and praying to God that they got in early, because the thing that you're building will have so much value. And there's only a finite number of tokens that could access it, whatever you want to call it, or there's only a finite number of particular character in the game, whatever it is. So there's a difference between being wrong in marketing materials for a benign software project, or crowdsourcing or crowdfunding that project with NFT tokens, where people may be relying to their detriment on the value of that token going up because of your work.
Now you're into mass amounts of.
Okay. So
I mean, that's why on a lot of.
So what you have is two things that are going on. You have possible fraud or deception in that you never intended to carry it out because of what you're in the roadmap. You didn't have the resources to carry it out. And number two, in whatever you're carrying out is a violation of securities because you made the promise. And then number three, you may also have this other kind of species of fraud where you didn't tell everyone that you're $1 million in debt, and the first $1 million that's coming in, you're going to pay off like some kind of debt, and then you don't have enough left to be able to actually do the actual project. And so what you have is you have this massive, or the people we're working with all quit and go work for Google. And so what you have, it could be an unlucky fraud, okay? But what you have is this continuum of lack of transparency combined with crypto in a cauldron where in one context something could be an unlicensed security and fraud, another one and folks look at this and Will, what do they say? Hey lawyer, I'm noticing ApeCoin doing Bored Apes, and they're doing a roadmap, and we're lawyer when they say that it's highly risky. What do they say? Everyone's doing it. So the lawyers are under pressure. Everyone's doing it. And so this entire industry is riddled with enormous pressure from people many folks who never had much money to begin with, they don't have much to lose. Lawyers, typically large law firms, pressure because everyone's doing it. And this incredible cauldron where governments around the world, including, our government and, the recent executive order with President Biden coming out and saying winter may be coming. So I'll stop right there, but those are some of my concerns about litigation. You also have one more thing, which is kind of the elephant in the room, which is loot boxes. Loot boxes were a big deal in 2020 and before when it came to video games. When you play FIFA soccer or whatever, you just find out what you get, like a baseball card thing, but you paid money for it and you could sell it. Almost every major NFT project has something that would mercifully be called a loot box, but in the hands of an aggressive prosecutor, it could be called illegal or unlicensed gambling, because you pay ETH, you spin this roulette wheel, and you find out if you have a certain rarity, and if you do, bingo, you win riches. And it's like the easiest cases to bring, but everyone's doing it, and so what you have maybe is arguments that, it's estoppel, or you have arguments where, there's a custom and practice. And there's a lot of arguments you can make as a defense lawyer, but there's a lot of stuff going on that needs analytics.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I would not be sad to see all of that bullshit leave this space and just get down to people want to buy stuff and support artists and creators and things that they want because they want them, because it's stuff they want, as opposed to, I didn't even look at the picture, I just heard it would go up. Oh, God, I hate that. And the real gamble, and maybe it's, you could make an argument that, this is the, hopefully that the tree-like structure and the virality of the TreeTrunk model will overcome or compensate for the speculation bubble, which I would love to pop with a big giant pin, right? So clearly that's where a lot of the news gets driven from.
Let's look at how it does that, though. Let's look at how. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. Oh, did we lose him?
You may have.
I heard. Let's look out.
All right.
Oh, there he is.
I just see it's 10. I saw it was 10 o'clock. So yeah. Can you guys hear me? All right.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Sorry about that. I want to cut you off because I don't know if we have to stop at 10. So I just thought maybe I'd say why TreeTrunk helps in this area.
Yeah, why don't you close us out and then we'll give the answer.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
I'll add one more.
Let's do it.
All right.
Go ahead, Ira.
I'm going to give a few examples of it because there's a lot under the hood that we could discuss some other time, and some of the stuff we're not going to share for obvious reasons because it would kind of ruin its ability to do what we want. But let's take a look at from the issue of licensing, which is near and dear to Richard. The 721 standard, generally speaking, as implemented, does not properly implement licensing. So if Disney wanted to go character into an NFT and have people do things with it, the 721 does not make it so consumers would get notice and consent of what the license is, especially when they buy it on OpenSea, for example, and then they go and buy and sell on another platform. Nobody would know what the license agreement is unless somehow they came upon a Disney site has it. That's the problem with Bored Apes too. The 721 standard is the metadata standard, okay? So, and many times in that metadata, they don't even include for license agreement. We fixed that, okay? So in 4910, we have a field for license agreement, and it's platform agnostic because by its nature, it goes to landing page that's IPFS, and that license agreement's always going to be there. And so it doesn't matter what platform you buy and so on. In fact, you don't need a platform. As people might know, it's an unplatform. You can embed one line of code into a blog or a web page. It will act as its own NFT store for TreeTrunk. And the full landing page for that is manifested so people would have notice and consent. So if you want to go ahead and put in content and you want to know from foe, infringer from licensee, okay? Pretty much the only game in town, there may be others, but the only game in town that we know of where the royalties are done on chain in combination with being able to know what license agreement is TreeTrunk. Okay, so that's a very important step. The other step that I think John was alluding to is that we also have masses integrity through the tree structure. You could look around, see who's involved in the tree structure, and you could determine whether or not by the people involved, by the artist involved, by our presence in terms of the tree trunk structure, whether or not something is likely. We're not going to make any guarantees. You still have to do your own due diligence, see whether or not, Beyonce or Sandler, who I like, is above you in that tree or on the same line. And then you're going to say, all right, well, if they bought in, I'm going to buy in. And then finally, where there's processing that gets done with TreeTrunk that you may not find on other sites. Address that in another show. But suffice it to say that John, who's right there, Joe and the team feel really passionately about in our very best to preempt and to mitigate copyright infringement as deceptive as well as bad actors. And so we have all sorts of features that have been baked in to our TreeTrunk technology and smart contract technology juxtaposed to our Web 2 presence that will provide that. We've been doing a lot of deep thinking on that, and we want to be the place where serious artists and serious content comes to do the very thing Richard was alluding to.
Well, I could not have said it better myself. Go ahead, Will.
No, I think Rich might have been wanting to close with something.
Yeah, I think one thing to keep in mind too is where we are in the life cycle. Just if you zoom out a lot and say, where are we in the life cycle of the NFT industry? It's really young. And the stuff that we're seeing as NFTs, even Bored Apes, what is the intrinsic value of that? There's a lot of content out there that constitute noise. Now, Bored Apes might break through the noise and become a long-lasting brand, but there's just so much noise to John's point before, and it is a definite challenge for legitimate NFTs to rise above the noise. But I think I have faith in the invisible hand of the market. And I think that as more and more legitimate, truly interesting and valuable content makes it into the NFT world, we're going to see just a natural shifting of time, money, and resources into more legitimate types of NFT art. And, I think big media, has just barely dipped its toe in the water. I know the artists that Serena has gotten, these are folks that are top notch, and they're just starting to play with NFTs. So you fast forward 6 months, and I think we're going to see a much different, landscape. I think the shakeout will continue, and the cream will rise to the top. Enabled by what Ira just said too, enabled by a better tool, a better mousetrap.
Love that. As always, I'm left with 1,000,001 questions, but I'll save them for next week. We have an incredible guest joining us at the Treehouse tomorrow, y'all. So definitely come through if you can. We're going to be speaking with Jimena Buenavida, an amazing artist in the space, and I'm sure we will be speaking with some amazing OG TreeTrunk artists very soon as well. So stay tuned on everything, y'all. Thank you for joining us. And wow, what a conversation. Ira, I'm going to have to DM you about some of this, man. And Rich, I'm so grateful. Serena and John, you already know what it is. You're amazing. And yeah, this is another episode of the TreeTrunk Show, y'all. We did it.
Thanks so much, Will. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.